Here at the Research Center, we use two methods for looking for vacuum leaks. One is a propane and a scan tool, and the other is a smoke machine. We'll talk about the propane method first. Connect the scan tool and make sure you select engine data. We always select oxygen sensors, and if it has multiple oxygen sensors, if your vehicle-specific information tells you, hey, it's got two oxygen sensors, one on bank 1 and bank 2, and you can see we've selected bank 1 and bank 2. So select all the oxygen sensors. Start the engine and allow it to warm up. Then use a propane with a long tip so you can get into the tight areas. Now I'm here to tell you propane will give you a much better result than using any spray can. Allow the propane to flow and move the tip around any suspect areas of the engine while looking at the oxygen sensor's response. Here, the oxygen sensors show no response to the propane. That indicates that there isn't a vacuum leak in the area we're testing now. Keep moving the tip around slowly. And it's very important that you move slowly. You got to give the oxygen sensors time to see the propane and then respond. So move the tip around slowly as you watch the oxygen sensor's response. When we add propane to this area in this example, we see that bank 1 oxygen sensor goes full rich. That's indicating a vacuum leak, but let's make sure. When we find a vacuum leak, we're going to move the tip away and allow the oxygen sensors to return to normal activity and then flow the propane into the same area again. And if the oxygen sensor responds with a rich signal again, we can be sure that there's a vacuum leak in that area. Keep looking in all areas. It's very common for an engine to have multiple vacuum leaks. Check all areas for vacuum leaks, even if they're hard to get to. Here you can see we're testing, allowing propane to flow near the check valve on a brake booster. An efficient way to test all of the small, out-of-sight locations for a leak is a smoke machine. So let's look at the smoke machine. You need to plug the throttle opening. You get an assortment of these plugs, and you pick the right size and plug the throttle opening. Connect the smoke machine supply hose to the intake, and you can see what we've done here. We've pulled off a hard plastic vacuum line, and we've slid the smoke machine's hose down over it. Now, the smoke machine comes with different tips, and we may use different tips in different applications, but this seemed like the right one for this application. And then let the smoke flow and look for smoke. Smoke, that's what you're looking for. And you can see at this vacuum port, we're actually seeing smoke leak out. But do not stop looking. Now this leak is large enough to cause a problem where when we looked at this leak, we may say to ourselves, you know, that is leaking a little bit, but long term it's shifted so far and we got a lean code, that little bit of smoke isn't our problem. But look at the smoke pouring out of this, around this O-ring for this injector. Now this can cause an idle problem. But don't forget something important here. If you have a little smoke coming out of an area like this, and you have a little smoke coming out of 5 or 6 other areas, that may very well add up to be a vacuum leak, and you're going to end up repairing multiple vacuum leaks. Make sure you continue to look around in all nooks and crannies and all the areas, even behind the brake booster in this area. Now, don't forget all areas. Make sure you check them all. When you see smoke, you must identify its source. And now here we see in the back of the engine. Now we may or may not have been able to get propane back there, and that's the point. So that's why you want to use a smoke machine. Now some leaks are in locations like we just saw that you can't see the source. In those cases, you can use a black light. Now, a black light will show us the ultra trace UV dye. Now, the ultra trace UV dye is patented by Star Enviotech, who designed our smoke machine and who loaned it to us, and we thank them a lot because it works really well. Using a black light, we can see a leak where the dye came out, where it leaks out. Now, under a black light, dye marks show us the leak. Now, we know this is a little bit out of focus, but it was very difficult to use the camera under a black light. But look at the picture and we can show you and explain to you what we see here. Down where that nipple goes into that metal part, you can see that there's some greenish tint there. That is that UV dye under the black light. And that way we can see small leaks. We can see out of the way in a nook and cranny leak. We can stop the smoke machine, turn the black light on, and start looking for the dye. It is a great way to test for leaks. And I'm sure you're doing that for AC now. It works great. Smoke machines cost more than using propane. But smoke can be faster and more accurate. You will now be returned to the test selection menu. Make a selection based on your test results.